of the public. We aren't due to take a tea break, but there is tea and stuff here, and I invite you to just to discreetly and at your leisure take advantage of it. Susan, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry, I might need this water. I'm just recovering from a cold.
Oh, good. You're good. Well, take your time. We've got 10 minutes. We've got your written submission, and you've seen the process. It's over to you how we use that 10 minutes.
Okay. Well, I have written down what I want to say, so I apologise for reading it to you. I can't remember in my state at present. I can't keep it all in my head. But firstly, thank you for coming to ChCh to listen and learn. It's much appreciated by people in the city. Although my submission is mine as an individual, I work across the city in 5 different locations, and from the very east in Redcliffs, or actually in Sumner, and belong to 2 community groups. So my range in a normal week is from the very east to the midwest of the city. And in that time, I meet lots of people, talk to lots of people, and through the 2 community groups that I belong to, I talk to many hundreds more. So I decided that perhaps I could be considered as a thinking everyman. And so I'm speaking for the thinking everyman. In my submission, my written submission, I spoke of our city's residents having, as a result of the way things have been managed and run, and as a result of the earthquakes, experiencing a kind of community post-traumatic stress disorder. Now that is from the quakes, but there's more to it than that. As the previous speaker said, in the heady days of mid-2011, the Christchurch City Council was charged with producing a draft recovery plan, which it did by December of that year. It was based on community engagement, a project called Share an Idea, and in those months, with aftershocks occurring regularly, and most of us fearful about buildings even, citizens went into libraries, halls, large intact centres, and we created 106,000 ideas, which informed the draft plan. The strong collective call was for a low-rise, open space-dominated, future-focused, smart city. But what we were delivered instead in July the next year by the Minister and Sarah and the consortium established was a slam-bam and no thank you, I won't say the next word, blueprint and a central city recovery plan full of things that actually had not been requested because they knew better. A community forum was established, but the minutes of their meetings were often late. They frequently had large sections redacted, and they were, at some meetings, committed to confidentiality. So the public had little idea whether there was any true consultation or what was being planned, whether the forum believed in what was being said, and there was absolute silence to the citizens. And here we are, 3 years later, with only a few things from the blueprint completed. When I thought about it writing this, I thought actually blueprint is an appropriate colour. So I want to reform my written submissions description into a different one I have coined. And I don't say this lightly, and I don't mean to create offence, but I've coined a phrase called battered citizen syndrome, as I believe that this bill, as formulated now, will perpetuate that situation. So as I speak to you, I want you to imagine the implications of the present bill against that image. Actually, I'm a very glass half full person, but of course people can only remain that if they think and they are satisfied. In fact, they're very happy about that glass half full and what is actually in the glass. So my submission today is about some things I am concerned about that are in the glass being the second image that I asked you to reference what I say against. So the first thing I considered for the glass, what is the real influence of Regenerate Christchurch? The explanatory note with the bill describes its purpose as supporting a vibrant, thriving Christchurch that has economic, social and lifestyle opportunities for residents, businesses, visitors, investors and developers. That of course means that 3 of the 5 groups that Regenerate Christchurch has the purpose of supporting have economic imperatives. I think there's something missing there. Regenerate Christchurch will be leading regeneration in defined areas of Christchurch, the central city, the red zones, and possibly other identified and agreed areas. Regenerate Christchurch will also have to engage and advocate effectively with communities, stakeholders and decision makers to achieve its purpose being of supporting. And Regenerate Christchurch has to collaboratively work with others in achieving regeneration. Section 92 of the bill and page 2 of the explanatory notes says that the bill will provide Regenerate Christchurch with all the powers necessary to achieve its purpose and objectives and to perform its functions. It is to develop visions, strategies, to provide investment facilitation advice to the Crown and Development Christchurch Limited, to comment on regeneration outcomes, interventions, and the contribution of Crown Company completing, I'll add the word perhaps, the anchor projects, and Development Christchurch Limited, and to provide independent advice and recommend regeneration activities to the Minister and the Council. All noble aims, but it is not a strategic partner in this bill process. Unlike the Regional Council, the 2 adjacent councils, the City Council and Ngāi Tahu, whose views must be sought along with those of Regenerate Christchurch by the Minister in making decisions relating to regeneration plans. All those bodies can propose such plans and they're all called proponents. I'm sure you know all this. At 84 in the regulatory impact statement for the bill, it states that Regenerate Christchurch will not have delivery functions, such as delivering anchor projects. However, all public sector agencies with delivery functions will be expected to collaborate with it and to respond to the guidance and plans it develops. So, we have an organisation about to be set up through this process, with the already pointed head, Christchurch's most effective delivery provider, but with no delivery functions. That sounds to me like being in the room as the workhorse and advising and consulting, but without real power. So in terms of Regenerate Christchurch, I'm not sure that my glass is half full. The second thing I considered was, what are regeneration plans? The explanatory notes explain that they contain the direction and the detailed matters that need to be addressed for regeneration in a particular area in a timely and collective way. These plans can be proposed and developed, like the draft recovery plan in 2011, by the strategic partners, Regenerate Christchurch and central government. However, just like for the first blueprint, if this proposed plan, unamended, then the Minister approves the development, amendment or revocation of the plans and for the continuation of existing recovery plans. There is a long process, as described in the explanatory notes and clauses 16 to 23 of the bill. As back and forth go the regeneration draft proposals, then amendments, then plans, then any revocations, and always the power remains with the ministers, several of them, and chief executives, and several of them. They can. The minister can approve, develop, amend, suspend, revoke RMA documents, council plans, other documents, amalgamate, compulsorily acquire or dispose of land and establish compensatory value, continue to demolish buildings, restrict access and close and stop roads. The explanatory notes say that the Minister will have particular regard to the views of the strategic partners and Regenerate Christchurch, and there are requirements for public input, but there is no stated obligation that the minister must have particular regard to that public input. Another deja vu, I feel, possibly like the community forum public input. The regulatory impact statement on page 4 at number 6 says regeneration plans will provide an expedited process for tackling key planning and regulatory processes. I suppose with the RMA and the LGA out of the way, one could argue that, though I disagree. Has the SEAR Act and the CCRP provided an expedited process? It appears not. And of course, removing the RMA and the LGA reduces citizen participation and voice and keeps the power firmly in the hands of the gatekeepers, the ministers and the chief executives, and until 2021 and possibly beyond. So
Susan,
the third thing...
Susan, are you nearly finished? We've
Yep.
well and truly used our 10 minutes.
I'm nearly finished.
Okay.
Thirdly, the new proposed bill. What is it? The explanatory notes say that the bill repeals the SEAR Act and establishes powers necessary to support the regeneration of Greater Christchurch until 2021. A nice 9-year time gap since 2012. Using those notes, I explained that there are over 20 references to ways in which the new bill corresponds to the SEAR Act. It appears to be the SEAR Act in drag. But reassuringly, it states in the notes under powers that the powers provided to the responsible ministers and chief executives will generally need to be used in accordance with the purpose of the bill and generally must be reasonably considered necessary. Then the bill gives almost total power as though the earthquakes happened last month. So my conclusion. The regulatory impact statement concludes that there were 2,800 submissions. It says that a full summary of public feedback is expected to be made publicly available in the near future. I want to know when. At 229 in that statement, it explains that SERA is conducting a distinct project compiling important lessons learned through the response and recovery phases. It will deliver a legacy of experience and practical tools to help minimise the impacts of future disasters and improve preparedness and resilience. A report is expected early next year. Personally, I think this shows a worrying conflict of interest. This should be an independent analysis. If this experience in Canterbury is truly the blueprint for future disasters, and there will be them, in New Zealand cities and towns, then it truly must be, as the previous speaker said, fit for purpose. What has happened here through SERA and the CCRP, round 1, and what's proposed in this bill, round 2, is not fit for purpose, I consider.
Susan, we are going to have to wrap it up.
I am wrapping it up. So please, consider hard and long on what is said to you here. Don't be bound by your usual party line requirements, because more is needed for Christchurch and more is needed for New Zealand. I remain, sadly, if this bill goes through, convinced that the glass is half empty. I think this bill needs real consideration and real reworking, and I think there's an alternative. The alternative is use an amended bill if you need to, but its actions must not be inconsistent with the RMA and the LGA. And you could simply have 2 commissioners sitting with the Christchurch City Council as the lead agency to ensure that the dollars invested by the government were managed. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. We appreciate you spending time with us today and for sharing your views and opinions with the committee. Thank you very much.